The Ford Mustang isn't getting a full redesign for 2018, but it is getting a bit of a refresh. While the cosmetic changes are few, it's what's changed underneath that counts this time. A retuned suspension, an available 10-speed automatic transmission, and of course, more horsepower and more torque. The model we're driving on this episode is the GT Fastback with the Performance Package. That means it has the 5-liter V8 that now produces 460 horsepower. The V6 engine has been discontinued for 2018, while the EcoBoost 4-cylinder remains. Its horsepower stays the same at 310, but the torque has been increased to 350 pound-feet. I put 1,000 miles on a 2017 GT recently, so I was anxious to see how these improvements had changed the feel. My first impression is that the GT Performance Pack is a must-have option. Not only does it add these 19-inch black wheels and the performance rear wing, it also upgrades the brakes to Brembos with larger rotors and 6-piston calipers. In addition, you get larger stabilizer bars front and rear, the gauge pack, a limited slip rear axle, special tuning for the ABS, chassis, and advanced track. That's a big list of improvements, and once you get behind the wheel, you will notice a difference. The car we're driving also has that 10-speed automatic transmission, which I was also eager to test. One of the things I talked about with the 2017 version was just how things felt pretty loose, especially when you had the steering in comfort or even in normal mode, that things felt like they could get out of hand a little bit. It has a lot of power, and it doesn't really feel like it is as stable as what some other sports cars feel. But I really think that's kind of the hallmark of a muscle car, is it has this little bit of an underlying feeling that you really have to kind of manhandle it to keep it under control and to keep it on the road. So I know that with all of the upgrades, especially with the performance package that this particular Mustang has, I know they've really worked to kind of improve handling and really work to get the handling to a place that feels more like a European sports car, while not losing that American muscle car feel that so many people have come to know and love. Now, one of the things about this car, because it is not a GT Premium, you don't get the nice big touchscreen. Now, you do still get a backup camera with the park sensors, and that's very nice, but the screen itself is not very big. So if you had a Mustang that's a little bit older that does have one of the bigger screens, you're probably going to want to upgrade to the premium version, because this screen, it's just very small, and it's not really a problem. It's just, if you're used to being in other cars that have a much bigger screen, this one is going to be a little bit jarring for you the first couple times. You really kind of have to lean in to see that backup camera, to see what you're really looking at. What a great sound this exhaust produces. Never get tired of hearing that exhaust note. This really has a wonderful factory exhaust. You know, over the years, I feel like the GT Mustang has been kind of muted unless you go get an aftermarket exhaust system. But this really has a great sound. In fact, I think some people might find it a little bit too loud. I personally think it is what a Mustang should sound like. This is great to me because they're not losing that muscle car feel. It still feels just a little bit unhinged as you're driving it around, like you could lose traction pretty quickly. The traction control has blinked at us a couple of times. My initial impression of this car when I first saw it is that I really like this color, especially with these black wheels. I think this color combo really lets you know that this is a new Mustang, because you just don't see this combo very often. And these wheels are part of that GT Performance Package. And so you have to opt for that to get those wheels. But I think with this color, by the way, this color is an extra option as well, $395 to get this color. There really aren't too many colors on the Mustang that cost extra, but this is one of them, and I think it's well worth it. The other thing I will tell you that I do every time I get in one of these is press this steering wheel button down here to change the steering feel over to Sport, which gives you a little bit more weight to it, and it's a little bit heavier, and I think that gives you a little bit better perceived view of the handling. So that's something I would recommend that you do right away when you get into the car. If you're in a parking lot or parking garage trying to park, I could see you wanting to switch it over to the comfort setting or the normal setting, because it'll be a little bit easier to steer if you do that, at least at low speeds. I know when Ford first unveiled the pictures of this car, some people said they didn't really like the front end and they didn't like the way that it looked, and I know that the looks of it have been somewhat controversial. But I will tell you that after seeing it in person, and especially seeing it in this color, I don't find that to be the case at all. I was a little skeptical as well when it first came out, And this may be another one of these situations where you have to option the car up to give it a little bit more of an aggressive look, and when you add these wheels and the more expensive color and things of that nature, that really kind of does away with it looking, I don't know, some people said it looked kind of frowny or it looked kind of cheap on the front end. I don't find that to be the case with this car. In fact, I think this has such a great look. Some other pros on the list to me, the fact that Ford has worked so hard to preserve that muscle car feel, especially in a time when you're hearing more and more about electric cars. The fact that they've worked overtime to keep this muscle car feel while also continuing to improve it, continuing to give it modern performance, continuing to boost the numbers for horsepower, for 0 to 60 time. All of those things working together, improvement of handling. All of those things really makes it a great combo for 2018 without losing the Mustang feel that so many people have come to know and love. I've actually kind of fallen in love with this car, to really be honest with you. I've not always been the biggest Mustang fan. I do like muscle cars, but they're just really not something that I gravitate towards as opposed to sports cars. But as far as this car is concerned, I think it does a lot of things very, very well. It's hard to argue with this much horsepower. It's hard to argue with the sound. Everything about this car feels great. It's a lot of fun to drive. One of the things I like to do on these test drives is to take the car in some stop and go traffic, especially when you have a car that has well over 400 horsepower. Sometimes they become undrivable in traffic. One thing I'll say about the 2017 Mustang, that was really one of my complaints, was I never really knew exactly how much I needed to push on the accelerator to make it go. And sometimes it was too much and sometimes not enough. I don't feel that way with this 2018 car, and so I think that's something that they've really improved. This idea between sport and normal and track, I never really could find the right balance. The same with the steering. Now I push the sports button. We have it in normal driving mode right now, and then we have sport for steering, and that seems to feel really good. You have plenty of power whenever you want it. You just have to press on the accelerator a little bit harder, and the power is there. But you don't feel like that the car is going to jump out from under you, which is something that I know can make people nervous when you have this much power. My biggest complaint continues to be with the lack of interior features and tech in a car that costs over $40,000. The one I built online with premium leather and navigation was pushing $50,000. However, the much improved road manners, the increased power, and the exhaust note really do make up for it. After spending 2 days with this one, I started to forget about all of those things and just enjoy the driving experience. I can't say enough about the performance pack and the difference it makes compared with the 2017 I recently drove. If you haven't been in a Mustang for 3 years, 5 years, or especially 10 years, you really need to go and drive the 2018 GT. I went into the test drive with some mixed feelings and some memories of that 2017 model, and I came away not wanting to give the car back. The feeling of wanting to drive it again and again sticks with you long after you've hung up the keys. Thanks for watching this episode, and be sure to check out more on our website. That's philsmorningdrive.com. We'll see you next time.